Okay, so I believe this is episode 11 from my knowledge. Episode 11 we have here with Christina. I'm very, very excited for this one because Christina is actually somebody I've known in the space for quite a while. Actually, when I started, I heard about her, done all kinds of things, the multi-passionate entrepreneur that she's called herself. And it's great because her experience spans over 4 years, but she's produced over $5 million in sales, either through her own consulting or actually social selling, and currently has our own program that helps out people to get really good at social selling. By that, we can say DM setting, in people's DMs, those kind of things are the typical things we see. And then actually for people who are even closers, but they're burnt out and want some more flexibility and become DM setters as well. So that is Christina in a nutshell. I'm sure there's a lot more to her, of course, which we'll dive into. But I'm so excited to really, I suppose, dive into what you're doing here. So, is there anything as part of that intro that I've missed, or anything you'd want to touch on a bit there?
No, not at all. I'm just really excited to be here, Taylor. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. So I'm just thinking of we discussed of what few things we could cover today, and I think there's a couple of main things that are very important to address for setters. First thing is, how do I know what type of appointment setting is the best for me? And the second thing is, as I suppose with being a appointment setter, like what is the best, like I suppose what are the best opportunities out there? Sorry, I forgot what we mentioned. There was another topic we just said before this, but it's
Oh,
come out of my mind. I've just
yes.
forgot.
Okay. How appointment setting or social selling can actually be a career. It's not always a stepping stone to
There
become a
we
closer.
go. There we go. Thank
Hmm.
God it's not me talking to myself. Otherwise, I'll just pause there for about 5 minutes. So glad you're here.
All
Good
good.
stuff. But yeah, let's dive into the first part, which is really all about,
Yeah.
well, what type of setter should I be? So, um,
Yes.
obviously, you found yourself to be really proficient in the social selling environment, but like, how did you come to that decision that that is the right thing for you?
That's a great question. Well, before I came into the high ticket space, I actually started in the virtual assistant space. That's how I even started my business. It was like I saw a TikTok, make $8,000 a month working as a virtual assistant. I knew I didn't want to be an assistant because I am not the one to organize people's businesses or do any of those things. But I, I knew there was potentially something out there for me. So I joined this group called the Virtual Assistant Savvies. There's a million people in it. It's such a cool place to check out if you're curious. Um, and there were a lot of people in there who were hiring something called an engagement specialist or a conversation setter. Those were like the buzzwords in 2020 when I first started. And I'm like, what's this? Like, what does this mean? And I hired a business coach at about $400 a month. Her name's Maggie. She's awesome. And I talked to her more about it, and I recognized, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could just make money having conversations with people all day? That's what I would love to do, but there's no way that's a real thing. And she's like, oh, no, it is. That's what you're talking about of those roles that you saw. So I ended up booking out my conversation setter engagement specialist business very quickly, like within 6 weeks. But I was charging people nothing. I wasn't getting commission. I was just charging like between 400 to $800 a month just to talk to people in the DMs. I didn't know that it was a thing in the high ticket space where I could charge more. So then I joined the Undeniable Closer. I met JD and I met Sam Dubs and all those people. And I learned more about this space. And I'm like, oh, this is actually just an appointment setter, but like framed in a different way. And I can charge commission too. So I ended up just doing this. And um, I ended up charging commission as well. I ended up charging a higher base because I had previous results with other clients. I helped clients. I mean, I worked with a virtual assistant agency. Um, she was at probably like 60,000 a month, and by the time we were done working together, she was at $250,000 a month. Yeah.
Crazy.
So
Yeah,
like
massive.
I didn't get commission on that though. Like I just made my $800.
That's
I
horrible
just
to
bought.
hear. You got absolutely destroyed with that. I'm sorry to
I
hear about that.
absolutely
Oh
did.
gosh.
I did, it was, but I had an amazing testimonial. Her and I still have a relationship to this day. We didn't work together anymore because she's like, I can't take on any more clients.
So
You
you broke
booked
her
out
business
my
as well.
business.
Great job.
Yes, I did. I know, right? So that's long story short.
Okay, excellent. So, like, and that's interesting because when people think of DM setters, they think, well, they're just, the busy VAs that are in the DMs. Like, people associate them more with being an assistant to the main guy, right? Everybody looks at the closers like these big
Totally.
A dog, these big players, that are the ones that are doing all of the work, right? They get all the credit and all of the limelight. But talk to me about that. Like, what is the value of a DM setter in a business? And without them, in a lot of social businesses, where do you think businesses would be without them?
Well, first thing I'll say is many businesses don't even know that they exist and that they're valuable. Um, I can tell you that quite a bit of my clients over the years, I actually reached out to them completely cold and had to tell them on the call what I did and why it was beneficial for them. So that was when they recognized, oh, wow, I could be making so much more money having someone like you. Let's do it. So I can say from that point of view, there's a lot of people who don't really know the value. And like you mentioned, Taylor, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's just a VA, just sending copy and paste messages. It's whatever. It can be anyone. It can be somebody who can just copy and paste. It doesn't take a ton of training. And that's
Take
one way
much
people,
skill, all that kind of
yeah, it
stuff as
doesn't take
well.
much skill. It's just a body. That's what I've heard. It's just a body where they have a sheet where they copy and paste from, and that's it. I mean, I'm not saying that that doesn't get businesses results because in some ways, for some businesses, that is all it takes to re-engage with leads that were never engaged with to begin with. They just needed somebody to reach out and say, hey, book this call. But they're leaving even more money on the table, not having somebody who has the emotional intelligence and skills to have real conversations on the business's behalf. That can produce so much more than just doing it that way. That's only making you a little bit more money. So a lot of businesses are losing money by not having that number two person that can know the business like the back of their hand and make recommendations in the DMs, prime this person in order to make it an easy close for the closer. Like, there's so many different intricacies and reasons why having a social seller is so incredibly valuable because you can have closers that are mid-tier in your team closing at a higher rate because you have someone like me in your DMs making it so much easier for the close because they were educated prior to getting on the call.
Absolutely. It's bringing that human element to them seeing
Mm-hmm.
somebody, right? Because oftentimes people see something online and they're like, oh, that sounds good, but it's probably a scam. It's probably a knockoff or something like that. Not don't want to touch that. But the moment they can get in touch with someone, actually ask their questions, go through a process that provides that human connection and actually answering some of their questions, oftentimes that'll be the reason they even get to the next part of the funnel. Right. And your job as a setter
Absolutely.
is to literally help advance people onto the next stages of the funnel, if it makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot
Yes.
of prospects will stay at the top of the funnel if they don't get that direct level of education. So oftentimes as a business, yes, you can get those easy yeses that come through the ads and those direct funnels that don't need any setters. But those, we're talking maybe 60, 70% of leads that are just stuck there. They're not going to move down the funnel if there's no extra advancements and direct contact. So
Yes.
massive.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You're
So
absolutely right.
yeah, I'm just thinking on that as well because it's social selling that you have been doing. And what actually, I suppose, prevented you from doing like more of the phone selling and helped you prioritize the social side, right? Because there are so many different setters that are watching this that do different things.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This is my personal belief, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. But I know as a millennial, this day and age, when somebody calls my phone and I don't know who the number is, I'm not answering
Fair enough. I think
it.
that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. And if that's my real belief, why would I be the person to make those calls? That's kind of how I feel about it. If it's something that I don't full-heartedly believe in, that I'm like, this process is it. Like, this is going to make the business money. I would just be in that role being like, we should be social selling.
Exactly, that you're acting from congruency there, aren't you? That would be wild to think
Hmm.
that, I would never want to take a phone call, yet I'm making phone calls to others. That's being a hypocrite, right? So that's totally understandable. And oftentimes,
Yeah.
this is another thing for you setters to look into. How do you actually feel when you're making these calls? If you were a buyer, would you appreciate that? Would you appreciate someone reaching out to you over the phone through text? And everybody is different, so there is no right or wrong answers, like Christina said. But think about
Absolutely.
your own buying process. That helps you to know what you would prefer and what's in alignment for you as well.
Yeah, that's the number one thing because I know some people, they love the thrill of the call. They love the feeling that they got someone to stay on the call and they set the appointment. That's exciting for them. For me, that sounds like a night, like my nightmare, my living nightmare. I would not want to do that. Um, but there's people
That
who would
doesn't make
not
it
want to
wrong.
do what I do. Exactly, exactly. So, I give so many props to the people who have call lists and make those calls day in and day out. It's clear that it works for some businesses really, really well. But I also think that for some businesses, they should be doing social sales in addition to that. That would make them even more money
Absolutely.
because, texting, I've bought things via text. I've never bought anything through a phone call. I bought things through social sales. It really depends on what you feel is best. And that's the most I'll say about that probably.
Absolutely. Well, you're hitting all of the buyer types there, by not having anybody in an Instagram DMs, Facebook DMs. I mean, just for context, when I was at Jeremy Minor in the month of May, I think there was about 5 to 8 DM setters I think we had at the time. And just in the month of May, I hit 250K cash collected in his Facebook group. We had Instagram, we had other sources as well, but like that just goes to show you there is so much money out there in social media, and you have to hit all of those buyer types. So it's absolutely crucial, and I'm glad you've touched on that. And I suppose
Yeah.
transitioning onto another important point is the importance of an appointment setter, right? Because as we spoke about just before this, it's often seen as the stepping stone onto
Yeah.
becoming a closer, being the top 1%, making 50K a month. That's not everyone's dream. So, like, let's place the importance back to the appointment setter then. Having a full-time career in appointment setting, it being your long term, like, where is the value in that for those people that have doubts about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it comes down to what your vision truly is. And listen, I know that there's so many people out there that are like, what's your vision? What's your why? I get it, but it really is important because just like you said, Taylor, for me, sure, making 50K a month would be pretty rad. Like, I'm not going to say no, but that is not my motivator. Money has never been my motivator. And it is for some people. I think that for me, flexibility, time and energy wise, is really important. My mental health is important to me. I struggle really deeply with depression and anxiety. So for me, I like to have grounded activities that I know I can rely on and having conversations every day with people in the DMs, that's consistent for me. That's grounding for me. So having a career in this is such a blessing because it's something I truly love to do every day and coaching people to do the same. And I can still make a really great income that was way better than when I was working 70 hours a week. Um, so I think what I'll say is there was a time I was making like 12,000 a month, working like 25 hours a week. And for me, that was more than enough. I was really happy with that. Everything comes with its stressors, but they were stressors that I was able to manage and that felt good to me. Um, Making 50K a month and having to be on 10 closing calls a day just was not for me. That's just an example, but for me, it just didn't make sense. So working 20 to 25 hours a week and making over 10K a month is like an absolute dream for me. Like that's amazing. And my goal for 2025 is to work 10 hours a week and make 10K a month consistently with only working 10 hours a week. And for me, that is exciting. doing something that I love and knowing that I'm helping other people. So I'm going to lessen my load even more because I value my time that much. Um, so yeah, I guess it just depends. Like there are people who can have it all, but it's really hard to hit all cylinders, making amazing money, having flexibility, having time for family, friends, or whatever it is that you do outside of work. It's really hard to hit all those cylinders. So for me, I think I would rather make 10K a month working less hours and feeling like I'm really having the time to enjoy my life than making 50K a month and working a typical 9 to 5 schedule. I just don't have an interest in that. But that's just me. So yeah.
That's good. And I suppose the sometimes the inner Andrew Tate in people could be like, no, you need to be 80, 90 hours a week, you need to do this, this, and this. But the reality is it's I guess that's more of a vomit of their values, right? Anybody can do things the way they want to in their own career. And as you can see, Christina is very fulfilled with that. And so and another
Mm.
thing I would say is you're living a lot of the dreams that the marketers actually post a lot about is, work 25 hours making this amount of money. And of course, very little people do manage to achieve what you have achieved. So for those
Mm.
guys who also have the focus like you, where they want more time and have those kind of earnings, what steps would you recommend that they take? Let's say if they are in a position where they're in hustle mode all of the time, because that's not always beneficial.
Right. It's not always beneficial. And sometimes, especially part of my career, I've been a recruiter, I'll see people join those kinds of teams and they think it's for them. And they're like, I didn't realize this really is not for me. I want to be that person so badly, but it's just not sustainable, at least for them. So I think that it's really important to recognize how you feel at the end of the day. When you have, sometimes people are workaholics, and I don't mean to get all like mental healthy on you, but when you're a workaholic, a lot of the time, it's because you're trying to hide from the feelings you have when you're not on calls. When you are not on those calls and the day is done and you're sitting with yourself, how do you feel in your heart and chest? Do you feel good about that day? Or are you wanting the day to end to start the next day to hide from those feelings some more? Like, what's the real reason why you feel the need to work so much? If it's because you truly enjoy it and you feel great at the end of the day, you're like, wow, I feel energized. I loved every single second. And you're being honest with yourself, and that's truly how you feel. Great. It's for you then. But if you are not feeling that way, it's definitely time to reassess. Okay, maybe working less. Maybe going on closing calls for this offer is exhausting for me emotionally. There's a lot of different things where it's important to think about. In a perfect world, I have my coaching clients do an exercise called In a Perfect World. In a perfect world, erase everything. Do not think what's possible. Do not think what my husband's going to think. Do not think what my friends are going to think. Do not think what my boss is going to think or the person that's in charge of the offer I'm on. What do you think alone? What would a perfect life look for you? While that may not be achievable by making changes tomorrow, right away, my perfect world 4 years ago, working 10 hours a week, making over 6 figures, and being a working actor. And I'm 1 year away from that happening. So that's something that's important to think about. Like, don't stray away too much from your perfect world. And if you don't know what it is, sit down and think about it and write it down for real and make steps. It's going to take steps. I mean, it's going to be, I think, total 5 years for me to get to my perfect world. But it's been a strategic plan of me trying different things, me going, this feels really good, this doesn't. I like this. I like this part of this. I do exactly what I want to do when I want to do it. And that's it. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well, yeah, it has in lots of ways. I'm just thinking because I like what you said about taking that time out to think. And I will say, I've been one of the many setters that are watching this that are like, yeah, I just want to work more, make more money. And I was, speaking to my wife about, yeah, if I work this much more hours, we're going to make this much more. And,
Totally.
I was very much like that. But however, when I did take the time out to actually think, right, when I spoke with JD, Daly, who I've mentioned a bunch on this podcast, how much he's helped. But whenever I would speak with him,
JD.
he's just a legend. But like
He
every
is, he's
time
great.
I'd kind of, you know, think about what I'm doing, think about my future, what I want to do, and actually think about all of the step by steps to do that. That's when I realized I don't really want to be doing this, right? I was actually having a lot of fun doing DM setting for Jeremy Minor. Like I remember like when I got my first 8K month, like I was watching the World Cup, I think, during that month, like whilst my cat was on my lap, and I was like, this is the most fun thing I've ever done. I don't feel like I've worked. But
Heck
and
yeah.
that's a problem because your missus then thinks you can do all of the housework at that point. So it is to your detriment sometimes. But yeah, it's just thinking about what you want and the way you want to do it. Get very clear on that, guys, right? Yes, earn a lot of money, work hard, but at the same time, do it in a way where you're fulfilled. If working 80 hours is what fulfills you in the right way, then great, go for it, as long as you're part of an offer that you really enjoy where you want to work those hours. Christina isn't saying
Yeah.
you shouldn't, you should only work 25 hours. It's just good for her,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
like really start to think about that. And before just going to do all the time and hustle, actually think about what you're doing because that also counts as hard work, is doing the thinking and the intentions, not just doing dials. That actually can become lazy at a point when you're doing it without acting on intention. So
Right. And
good point.
I think something that I want to say about that too, another reason why I never stepped into setting, because I remember when I worked in corporate and I had to cold call people, that was part of what I've had to do in the past. I always had feelings of please don't pick up, please don't pick up,
Right.
please do
Yeah.
not pick up. Like every time that was in my head, and I felt this sinking feeling in my chest. Every day I was doing this, and I just prayed people didn't pick up the phone because a lot of people, when they did, they would yell at me, they would get mad. I had to de escalate the situation. There wasn't enough people happy to talk to me. And I did not like that. It was not good for my nervous system. I'm like, I want to talk to people who are at least open to talking to me when the conversation is approached, which is why I like DM sales because I think over my 4 years doing this, I've had like two or three people like say, stop messaging me. Most people, they will be like, hey, I'm just not interested right now, but reach out in a few months, or they don't answer at all, and I'll stop after four times of reaching out or whatever, and that's fine. But not nearly as many people sending me messages being like, I literally hate you, F you, don't call me. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
just,
most people who do the outbound colds. Yeah, it's every day, isn't it?
yeah. And for some people, you can really like just keep going. And I commend those people because it doesn't affect them. But I know for me, it affects me. And I just had to face that realization. I'm like, it's just not for me. But everyone has different experiences and different thresholds and things that they can deal with and can't, and that's what makes us all human. So, you know,
Yeah. And I was just actually thinking for any of you guys watching right now, take an understanding of how self-aware Christina is, right? You can tell she's had the time to actually think about who she is, what she wants, her tendencies, and now she's created a lifestyle where she's truly working on her own terms. That really, and I'm not always the type of person that say you should do this and should do that, but that should be the goal, is to figure out what you want and work on those terms, right? I'm sure that's
yeah.
why a few of you are here in the space, not just to have another job that you're dialing for. At that point, quit the high ticket space and just go back to a job again and do a sales job, right? But like this is why you came into this space, is to create that lifestyle and to really have all those goals achieved and also just work in a way where you're fulfilled, right? So don't
Mhm.
be here and think that it has to be a certain way because somebody's told you, right? You can very much design that, and Christina is living proof of that.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, it's you've dropped some amazing bombs here, Christina. I wish we had a bunch more time, but it's been an absolute pleasure to connect on this. And I think some of those points very, very important for setters to know. I guess before I do go, I want to make sure people know what it is that you're doing, how to connect with you if they have questions. So yeah, just let me know more about like what you're doing on the social selling side, how people can get in touch with you, just to end it off.
Yeah, no, for sure. Wow, time flew by so fast talking together. Like I cannot believe it's already been almost 30 minutes. Okay, so you can connect with me on Facebook, under Christina Melgar. I think I'll probably be tagged in this, so you can just add
Yeah,
me.
I'll put the link in
Um,
the description with that jazz.
Perfect, perfect. You can message me, ask any questions, give me any thoughts. I promise I'm not going to try to sell you anything. But if you are interested, I am coaching people how to become a social seller or people who are closers who are burnt out, who want to step into a social selling role. And my coaching cohort starts tomorrow, actually, but it is on rolling enrollment, meaning that you could come in and start at your own pace and ask questions, and I can give you more information. But this is something that is financially accessible. I have a passion for coaching. I already have 6 people in my cohort. And I'm always happy to answer any questions you have. If you're watching this and you're like, wow, I've really never, I've really never thought of social selling was for me, or I wanted to make this a career. If you have questions about it at all, please message me. I'm happy to respond to you and give you any insight. And if I can't help you, I'm more than happy to point in the direction of somebody who can.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Christina. Hope you guys have enjoyed that. Of course, the usual. If you liked it, definitely like the video. 100% comment your best takeaway from that video as well, and definitely share it because more people need to hear about this with regards to appointment setting. It's not what people make it to be on the internet. It genuinely is a real thing. Real great things can happen, and it can be a genuinely great career. So definitely do that stuff if you
Absolutely.
liked it. And yeah, on to the next episode, I guess. So thank you for having us, Christina.
Thank you so much, Taylor.
Cheers. See ya.